Okay, Dylan Brown has signed a 10-year, $13 million deal with the Newcastle Knights from next season. That's 1.3 million per year before bonuses. Now there is a 10-day cooling off period. I'm going to start with the Parramatta Eels side of things. They obviously got Mitchell Moses signed to a contract extension until 2029. That kicks in from next year. And I think that was in part to try and encourage Dylan Brown to stay. And they basically said, look, we've got Mitch Moses tied up. We want to be competitive. We want to rebuild under Jason Riles as the new coach. We get Moses signed. Let's try and entice Dylan Brown to stay. And they couldn't come to an agreement, from reports suggesting I think they were offering between $1 million to 1.1 mil per year on a contract. I don't think that the length of term was as long either. And Dylan Brown and his representatives have had negotiations with the Knights. The Knights were willing to pay him more than the Eels, so 1.3 million, and a longer term deal. So that's where Parramatta have missed out. Also, there were clauses in his last contract with a player option in his favour. Same with Mitch Moses, where they could break their contracts basically and enter the market earlier. Mitch Moses has had that option taken out of his contract. Dylan Brown potentially has that option still in his contract. So that's another risk for Newcastle. In regards to the Knights, that means they're now spending over $2.5 million on Ponga and Dylan Brown from next season. That's a huge proportion of the salary cap tied up with two players, one of whom is injury prone, and the other one has had some disciplinary issues off the field, where the Parramatta Eels stood by him when he was facing his legal issues and were willing to, not sack him, not tear up his contract, let him back into the side and go from there with all his legal issues when he was missing a fair proportion of his career 2 years ago because he was facing court for some very serious charges, and the Eels stood by him. So there is also that risk that Dylan Brown, having this checkered off-field history and a bit of a checkered reputation as well. But not only that, 10 years is a long time, and there's a lot of money over a 10-year period. Now, yes, the salary cap will go up, but then you've got to ask questions about the Newcastle Knights salary cap management. They obviously want to keep Kalen Ponga at the side. He's the club captain. They're trying to keep him past the end of his current contract. There's rumours that he may go down to Sydney or may go up to Queensland, back up to Queensland and sign a lucrative deal with another club. The Roosters is one of the favourites potentially to sign him if he decides to leave the Knights. I think getting Dylan Brown there is also designed to keep Kalen Ponga at the club. But either way, they are spending a lot of money on two players. And when you're trying to build a successful team, you need to have good cap management, and that is a big risk that they're attaching to Dylan Brown. Plus, what happens if he gets injured? Will he fulfil the 10 years of his contract? Will he still have this clause in his contract where he could break his contract basically and leave early? 10 years is a long time. Now, Tamalolo is injury prone now. He signed a 10-year deal in 2018, and Cherry Evans signed a 10-year deal in 2015. Now, neither of those two players have been back to a grand final. Tamalolo played in the grand final in 2017. Cherry Evans obviously won well before he signed his 10-year deal with the Sea Eagles. In I think his debut season, he went to a grand final. And they're the two other examples of these long-term contracts. Tamalolo has missed a lot of time through injury. He is regularly injury prone. Big money for a prop. Cherry Evans has proven himself, in State of Origin and for Australia over many, many years. He is a world-class player. He's won State of Origin as a captain. He's a brilliant player. And the Sea Eagles have been a very competitive side with him. He tied himself there long term, and he's going to play his entire career with the Sea Eagles. He's probably got a year or two left. Maybe retires it this year, maybe next year. But he has basically fulfilled his contract. He hasn't had a lot of injuries, not really suspended. I don't think he's ever been suspended. So Cherry Evans, okay, it's sort of worked. Tamalolo, though, is the risk factor. Injuries, fitness issues, not being able to play at peak performance, limited minutes. Now, Dylan Brown, what happens if he gets injured a lot? What happens if he has further off-field ill discipline issues? Because the Eels stood by him when he was stood down with his legal troubles a couple of years ago. And they didn't rip up his contract. They had every right to terminate his contract and sack him. They chose to stick with him and support him through his legal issues. And a lot of other clubs would have torn up a player's contract for that. So there is some risk attached to this. One, he doesn't fulfil the 10-year contract. Two, it does distort their salary cap and then they're paying too much for two players. And three, what happens if there's more off-field indiscretions with Dylan Brown? This is the thing. This is a high-risk contract in regards to how much they're paying him. And is he of the same level as Cherry Evans, for example? Is he on the same level as, a Nathan Cleary? No. He's not on the same level as other players in his position. And there is a lot of risk attached to this. And will it work with Newcastle? Will he fit in with his teammates at the Knights? Will it actually improve the Knights next year? Or will they get worse? Will he have a good working relationship with whoever his halves partner is designated to be? Because Newcastle have struggled to find consistent halves since, the Johns brothers and Danny Baderis. They have struggled to find consistent halves for Kirk Gidley, I think, a long, long time. Since 2001, they have struggled to find decent halves for 20 years. They have struggled as a team for 2 decades. They've had 3 wooden spoons in there. They haven't been consistent in making the top 8. And so there is a big risk attached to this. But there we go. Place your thoughts in the comments section below. What are your thoughts on the Dylan Brown 10-year deal? Is it too long a term? Is it too much money? Is it a risk worth taking? Could he actually transform his career and take that next step and hit that next level? Or will it be like a Fafita or Tamalolo type contract where they don't quite fulfil their ability and fulfil their contract? Or will this be like a Cherry Evans where you get a very good player long term who develops into a leader, skill player, and helps the team become more competitive, make top 8 regularly, make grand finals? We shall see. But there we go. Place your thoughts in the comments section below, and I'll have some more content for you guys very, very soon.